Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Reverend Laughlin here. We're on the Wise Ones on USA Global TV and Radio Network. And if you're watching us today on YouTube, please consider being a subscriber to the USA Global TV and Radio Network. It would help us out quite a bit. Thank you. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck's channel also has the same show today. So appreciate your consideration. When I'm not doing TV shows, and I do 3 every Thursday, back to back to back. I just finished one called The Corner Bookstore that we feature authors on. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. I specialize in longevity and aging. In fact, my next book coming out called Aging Sucks will be out July 4th. That's my current publication date that I've set for this book. When I'm not doing that, I help authors get their books published, publish over 50 books for people, and speak and everything else, just having a load of fun. So that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and bring our guest today, Patrick Sangimino. Please join us up here on stage. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to read Aging Sucks because I'm starting to feel that, as we get older, the things you used to be able to do and can no longer do. So.
Well, I wrote a book 10 years ago, and I talked about some of the causes of aging. But with AI and just the ability of everything to find what's available now is just mountains of information, more than what I had earlier. So I'm going into a lot of detail on that. But that's kind of enough about me, unless we want to go down that aging path, which we may, but we'll figure it out. But you spent 40 years as a journalist. That's a long time. So I'm guessing you started out with not a manual typewriter, but certainly an electric typewriter.
An IBM Selectric, and I thought I was in heaven when I stepped up to my desk and there was an IBM Selectric, and then that only lasted about a year before we went to computers. But yes, I did start off with a typewriter.
I had an IBM Selectric in my garage for decades. I still have probably 6 or 7 little font things that you put in there. And one day, turning around, I knocked it off and just really discombobulated, broke the frame, and I almost brought tears to my eyes. So, but I know what you're talking about. That was a major coup back then compared to the other things that were available.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you ever type on a manual? Because when I was in college, that's what I used.
Yeah, I think the fastest I was ever timed was 108 words a minute on a manual.
Oh, wow. You're way faster than me.
Even today, I do about 80, 85. Slow down a lot.
All right. I'm not going to try to compete with you.
No, it's just from here to here, it just kind of happens. And I guess part of it was my dad had an insurance business when he retired from the Navy. And during the summers, I'd go out there in the secretary. And the first thing I ever did was typing made simple. And I'm sitting there, and I got up to about 45, 50 words a minute at the end of that summer. Then I took typing class in high school, and we had manuals. I don't think we had electric. I think there was some electrics that they gave us some orientation on, but Underwood and Remington and a couple others, I can't think of them right now. But some of them, they just it just flowed anyway. That's a long time ago.
Man, the liquid paper days and all of that. Do you remember the automatic the automatic eraser ribbon that they had and everything?
Yeah, I had that. I had the, as you say, the whiteout. I had the little strips you put down there and retype over it.
Yeah.
And then you had the carbon paper that you had to put the carbon paper white strip on because it was a different, anyway. But yeah, many memories of that. So you transition into the computer. So you had that, what was a Word Perfect or Books Writer or half a dozen others that were back there at that time.
Man, I wish I could remember. But I remember that the first time we got to work remotely, they gave us these little Radio Shack computers, and there were, you could look at 8 lines at a time. It was about the size of a TV dinner, and you'd carry it with you. And then you had to go and find a phone and plug it into a phone and transmit your story to the modem on the computer, and it seldom worked. I mean, there were times when it just never worked, and then you had to translate the story to an editor who was upset with you for not having a computer that worked. So it was a different time. Life is a whole lot simpler in that regard.
Well, when you talk about the first part of Microsoft Word or Word Perfect or whatever it may happen to be back then, there was a joke going around about they finally got the Bible into Word, and they were 100%. They could do anything they want, search and such. And so one of the questions came out was, okay, when was the subject of baseball introduced in the Bible? And it's according to the Word Perfect thing at the time. It was Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the big inning. So even though it may pass a spell checker, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right.
That sounds like something Harry Carey would say.
Probably so. Now you're in that era where you had people like Harry Carey. Then you also had the two people that would converse back and forth. And initially that was okay, but I actually fell in love with having the two people converse about something rather than just have one. What's your feeling on that?
You know what? It's why baseball is such a wonderful sport, because it's perfect on the radio. And it's something you could do around the house while you're listening to two guys talk about a ball game. So I absolutely loved hearing the stuff that was in between pitches. And you would hope that the story would hold up. The inning would last long enough for them to finish the story rather than go, well, we'll finish the story when the Giants come up to bat in the bottom of the second inning. And you were always waiting to hear that story. I would stick around just to hear that story.
And sometimes the story never came.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I used to run with the radio, and I would listen to the ball game as I'm running. And that was one of those things. You had there wasn't dead time. People were talking. You were focused on what was going on. It just really, to me, it made me more into the game than not.
Well, you look at the influence baseball has had on America, and radio has everything to do with it. These people were invited into your house each night. They were honored guests, and you would listen to them. And you'd walk down the street and in the summertime, and you would hear every house had the game going on. It was a big deal.
Let me tell you a very brief story. On my honeymoon, we were in San Antonio, and we go into a restaurant, Mickey Mantle's Country Kitchen, and he was there. And the couple next to us had a Polaroid. They got his picture taken with him. And I asked, would it be possible? We're on our honeymoon. Would it be possible to get, have you take a picture? And so Mickey Mantle and my wife and I are in a picture, and he signed the back of the Polaroid.
Nice. You still got that?
I do. I show it on social media every so often, but I have it in my safe downstairs. And but yes, I still have it, and I treasure it because he retired about 6 months later.
Wow. How has that Polaroid survived the test of time?
Actually, quite well. I haven't kept it out in the daylight or in light, so it's actually been enclosed in something. Obviously, you have the color migration, but you don't have the burnout from light sources that kind of overpower things. So it actually survived quite well, and especially his signature on the back.
That's nice. Well, like you said, aging sucks, so it happens with a Polaroid too.
It does. So your print background, you've been here, there, and yonder, and anywhere but the moon, I'm sure. What's some of the better places you've actually been as a journalist that you say, hey, wow, I'm really looking forward to going back here?
You know, I started off going to Kansas City, which I thought Kansas City was a wonderful town. Kansas City's grown a lot since I got there in the early '90s. Liked it immensely, and I have great friends there. I don't think I want to go back to Wichita, Kansas, as much as as there were some good people there, but it was just a different kind of town. I liked Nebraska a lot. Omaha was a cool town. Lincoln was my favorite town of all of those in the Midwest, and I liked Olathe, Kansas as well. I look forward to going back to those two places more than any.
Interesting. That's center of the country.
Yeah.
So World Series and football. How about Olympics? Did you make any of the Olympics?
Never made the Olympics. I remember the '96 Olympics, and I was actually vacationing during the '96 Olympics, and I remember the bombing and all of that stuff, and I remember being glued to the TV and wondering how I would have been covering that had I been there. But pretty thankful I wasn't there, actually, because it became kind of a side story that was enduring, and it kind of overshadowed the games. I remember that being the Muhammad Ali lighting the torch, and that was controversial in itself. There were a lot of things that were going on during those games.
The opportunity to travel with your company, the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Were you restricted from, say, going to Canada or Mexico or something like that for some event?
No, but it just wasn't that common. It was I don't think I ever covered anything internationally. As a matter of fact, no, I didn't. Which is I think it would have been fun, but when I was covering the NFL, they had not yet. They had tried the Europe thing. They had tried the Europe thing in the early '90s before I got there, late '80s, early '90s, and it was an economic failure. So they pulled the plug on that pretty quickly. Only recently, in the last 10, 12 years, have they decided to play games over there again, and it's vastly popular in Europe. And now you're starting to see them go down to Brazil, and I've heard that they're doing Mexico City game again next year, and I've heard some talk about somewhere in Asia in the coming year. So it's interesting because they are trying to market this as a worldwide game.
The people you run into, legends in basketball, baseball, football, who are some of your favorites?
I think they were the common day guys, the guys that you would never. They're not Hall of Famers by any means, but they were guys who went about their business like you and I do every day. They were the grinders. I had I had an affinity when I was in the Kansas City Royals clubhouse all those years. I had an affinity for a center fielder named Brian McRae, who was the son of the manager Hal McRae, and he was just a good guy to talk to. He was very knowledgeable about sports. He wanted to get into broadcasting when it was all over, and I would find him at high school games in town every now and then. During the strike in '94, he actually took a class in broadcasting at the University of Kansas, and was one of his assignments was to broadcast a game with his partner, and it was fun seeing him up there, just trying to learn something new. He's one who comes to mind. Another guy was an offensive lineman with the Kansas City Chiefs named Dave Zott, who went to Penn State, and he was just a salt of the earth guy. Just guys who went about their job and didn't think that they were important, even though they were.
Gene Upshaw went to the same college I went to. In fact, we shared one laboratory practical together, and another story. But anyway, he would do the kickoffs for our school, and there were many times he would kick it through the uprights if the wind was with him. And then, of course, he goes to Oakland, and I think first couple of years, I think he did some kickoffs for them. But he's one that I know from, not say close personal experience, but somebody I followed. But yeah. I love Mickey Mantle. I love Whitey Ford and Yogi Berra. But one of the guys I really liked was Bobby Richardson, second baseman.
Nice, second baseman. Yeah, and he's the one who caught the Willie McCovey line drive in the '62 World Series that cost the Giants their first World Series ever. So in San Francisco.
I think I read something, I'm pretty sure it was Bobby, that said if he strikes out any less, he won't strike out at all. Because they said he would strike out less than 10 times a year.
That's amazing.
And so when you put the bat on the ball, something's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And you have to be ready.
That's the fatal flaw with baseball today is we've devalued the strikeout. We've allowed kids to strike out 4 times a game. It's okay if on the 5th they hit a home run. So you're willing. The game has just taken a downward slide now because we're waiting on home runs and allowing them to swing as hard as they want on everything else and fail those other 4 times.
Well, things have changed. Like you were writing for a newspaper, and then you started transitioning, as you said, found your own voice after about 10 years. How did you find your voice as far as becoming an author?
I think with finding your voice as an author, writing is writing. And it takes a good 10 years for a journalist or for any writer to really find out who they are and what their voice is. Once you find that voice, the writing part comes very simple, and it's about building relationships and getting the quotes needed to write the kind of stories you want to write and the stories you want to tell. But with writing a book, it was writing about something that came naturally to me, something that I had a field of expertise in, and shaping a story around that expertise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, your passion is there. You're comfortable with it. You're competent. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the fun thing about this was, the story is about a writer who's driving, a journalist who's driving to work one day, and he's expecting to be laid off, the latest casualty in a mass layoff. And here he is now. The story takes place over a single day, but it flashes back over his entire life. And I came up with the idea of this story by witnessing what was going on at a competing paper where they had a Black Friday or whatever it would have been. I don't remember the day of the week, and where dozens of really good reporters, many of whom were friends of mine, lost their jobs. And I was like, wow, suddenly these people who were great at what they did are out of a job. And if it could happen to them, it could happen to any of us. And is this inevitable?
You wrote a book called Dogs Chase Cars. So after our commercial break, which we're going to hear literally in less than just a few seconds, we'll come back and talk about that book, and we can go from there. Patrick, please wait about a minute or so. We'll be back to finish our conversation.
My Tummy Hurts by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Meet Jackie. She loves recess, running with friends and laughing on the playground. At school, Jackie tries to play like she always does, but suddenly the pain comes back. Lately, something feels different and her tummy hurts, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot. With the help of a caring teacher, a nurse, her mom, and a kind doctor, Jackie begins to understand what her body is trying to tell her. Sometimes tummy pain is more than a simple bellyache. Some children live with conditions like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. Jackie listens to her body. She asks for help. She knows she's not alone. And Jackie finds her way back to running, laughing, and being herself. My Tummy Hurts, a kid's guide to bellyaches and bathroom troubles by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, available on Amazon and in fine bookstores around the world.
Reverend Laughlin here. We're on The Wise Ones, and my guest today is Patrick Sangimino. Patrick, please join me back up on stage. Patrick, you spent decades writing as a journalist. Now all of a sudden you're writing as an author. I assume there's going to be a second or a third book coming out too.
Yeah, there's actually, everybody wanted to know what became of the guy who's driving to work one day and is somehow inevitably loses his job. What is the second chapter in life? And it became a really interesting thing. Like, where do I want this guy to go? And it's something we all deal with. What is that second chapter in life? What do you do to wake up, to remain relevant after the thing you did for so long has been pulled away from you? And, what keeps you going?
Usually writers have a lot of time to read and they have choices. I looked doing some research on you. Steinbeck and Tom Wolfe are two that you pointed out, I guess, in an interview or two previously. What fascinates you about Steinbeck and Wolfe?
Steinbeck just, I took a great class in college, a Steinbeck Lit class in college, because I went to school, just a few miles from where he grew up. And so it was kind of a big deal. I love the way he wrote about the plight of the American worker, particularly migrant workers, who went from field to field harvesting crops, and the ranch hands and people like that. He was very good at bringing out the humanity in them and understanding what they were going through. I love the way he wrote about California in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. It's not so different now to walk down Cannery Row in Monterey and feel this is where John Steinbeck walked and wrote about. Tom Wolfe, Bonfire of the Vanities is a classic to me, and I'm surprised it's not on the list of best books ever, just because here we are 30 years later and it's still very relevant to what we're going through today. Yeah.
How long did it take you to write Dogs Chase Cars?
Well, I had a medical leave in December of 2023, and I had come up with the idea for Dogs Chase Cars about probably about 7-8 years before that, and it had work and life get in the way of all of these writing projects, and so I had about 9 weeks off, and I had I decided I was going to do something that meaningful in those 9 weeks. I wanted to get something done. I didn't have work in the way. And as a result, I sat down, I went through my notes, and I wrote for about 2 hours a day, nothing more. 2 hours a day is very doable, little bites. And at the end of 9 weeks, I had a first draft written, which made me proud. I mean, 9 weeks, um, 9 weeks well spent, I believe.
Do you have a developmental editor, or do you just do everything yourself?
I did everything myself, and then I found I didn't. As journalists, we look at people who call themselves authors with a little bit of pretentiousness. Um, and so I was very reluctant to say I wrote a book or that I was an author of any sort. So I called a friend of mine, and she's a New York Times bestseller, and I said, I wrote something. I don't even know what it is. It might be crap. Would I don't know what to do with it now. And she said, all right, well, here's my editor. And she sent me his address and email, his email address and his phone number. I sent him, I sent him an email, dropped her name, of course. And he said, okay, let me read the first 3 chapters. And he wrote back to me later that day, and he said, oh, you know how to write. And I was flattered, and I said, yes, but I don't know what I wrote. And he said, well, I want to see what you wrote, but I think you wrote a novel. And I said, okay, well, I don't know. I can't use that word just yet. But he said, you're an author, I think. And so we had this little joke that ran through the whole time about me being an author and writing a book. So that was fun.
So you got the book. You wrote the book in a couple 3 months. How long did it take you to get edited and ready for publishing?
Well, that's so it took him probably 6 weeks to edit it. And then he looked at me and he said, are you ready for the work to begin? And, as a newspaper reporter, we write a story, and 15 minutes later, after it's been read a couple of times, it's off to the people who are putting it on the page. So I thought that we were completely done at this point. Well, he liked what I wrote, but he wanted to change it around a whole lot. He wanted the order to change. And I wrote it very chronologically to start with. And I was very scared about about jumping from past to present, because I didn't want to confuse the readers. And he goes, they'll pick up on it. I promise you, they will eventually understand what's going on. It might confuse them for the first few paragraphs or the first few chapters, but they're going to understand it after a while. And I said, okay, if you think so. And he swayed it to becoming far more of a story about a man's relationship with his father. And that became kind of the underlying theme throughout was this relationship. And there's a metaphor in there about an old baseball glove that his dad bought him when he was 8 or 9 years old, and that baseball glove is a recurring theme throughout. And I am so grateful for him and his thought process on the importance of that, because it became a far deeper story. It became a story about almost the failed relationships and the ones we take for granted in life. The cautionary tale of striking a work balance between home and striking a balance between home and work life. Yeah, there's so many little things to this book that I think people can relate to.
How did you develop the cover?
That's really funny. I let my publisher develop it, and the first person who developed the cover, he came back to me after a day, and there was a picture of a dog in a car, and I said, "What's this?" And he goes, "It's a dog chasing a car," and I said, "That's got nothing to do with the with the title of the book. It's about newspapers," and so he goes, "Oh, okay. I need to read some of this before I go on." So when I first saw this cover, the one that got on, I was like, "Wow, that's very apocalyptical." And then I was like, "But this is kind of an apocalyptical day in this man's life. So it might work. I love the typewriter in the foreground of the cover. It's my favorite part, that it's kind of an homage to where we came from. That the origins of my industry.
Did you use any AI for any part of your book?
Not a bit. No,
Okay.
I just I everything came from the AI of my brain, and I hope most authors are doing that as well. I mean, it makes me sick that we're going to lose this humanity in our books, this human touch. Then again, somebody could write a book in 10 minutes now by just pushing a button, and it scares me.
Well, yeah, AI is a tool. I mean, I use it for research.
Mhm.
I spend a lot of time diving into the molecular level of the human body, and I'm looking at, well, okay, fine, that does this. Why does that? And so I get answers to questions that I would take me forever on Google to try to
Right,
get. And
right,
so for me, it's a very, very handy tool, but that's what I use it for. So okay, fine. Now I have data. I can actually create my article or whatever I need.
right.
And but that's for a nonfiction in an area that I have a lot of passion for.
Yeah,
So
no, I understand it. I understand there's a need for it in researching things. I used Google to find out the distance between St. Louis and Kentucky when I was, as part of my book. There's a motorcycle ride, and I wanted to be able to tell in some detail about that whole thing and what highway you would get on at that point, because I don't claim to know any of that stuff, but I did research it.
how soon did you start marketing your book?
You know, as a journalist, we put it out there and we're like, okay, here it is, everybody run to it. And we had no idea what you do with it after that. This is such a new experience for me, and I think it took a few months. Um, I finally decided that I needed some expertise in this, and I called in Mickey, and he became my publicist, and he's done a great job with it. So, there's some things that I have no idea about. Most things I have no idea about this genre, and you learn something new every day. And I think I'm going to be better with the second book when it comes to these sorts of things. But it is a process. It's just because it would be like, yeah, I like to eat, but that doesn't mean I can run a restaurant either. I like to write, but that doesn't mean I know how to market a book.
Yeah.
So
The aspect of marketing includes many things. So you have the cover, that's part of it. You have other things. Oh, you mentioned Mickey. I was going to follow up with that. Mickey Mickelson, Creative Edge, he provides a lot of
yeah.
our guests for our show. So just make sure he gets credit for that. Do you have any audiobooks? Is this going to be an audiobook?
Yeah, we actually, that was a fun part of this whole thing, is we're just completing the audiobook part of it. And we went through the whole audition period of, they asked me what I wanted a voice to be like. Obviously, I wasn't going to be able to get Morgan Freeman to come and be my guy, but we talked about, I wanted somebody with a kind of a subtle New York accent. Somebody didn't sound like a cab driver in New York. And they gave me like 10 people. And it was fun getting through that whole thing and finally choosing one. And I brought in some family members, and we all everyone had their choices, and we finally settled on one.
One thing AI can help you with is video trailers for your book.
Uh-huh.
Have you thought about that, or is that something you're
Yes,
working on?
my publisher actually did one of those, and did a pretty good job with it. Although I, the lead character came out looking like Larry David instead of, I always pictured him looking like a Joe Montana kind of guy, and and suddenly here's Larry David, and so it was different. It was interesting. He definitely aged a little bit.
So where do you see your second book? What's the topic on that one? Just
Yeah, I
follow-on?
think it's him. It's the protagonist from the first book, and what he does to the he is he has gotten out of the newspaper industry, and like I said, he's starting he wants to know what his second chapter of life is, and it's kind of like the comma after your name in the obituary. What are you going to be known for? And you got 20 years to figure it out now, and he's on this quest to figure out what comes after his comma.
It's interesting. You spend 40 years doing something, whether it's, as you say, it could be teaching, could be military, could be a lot of things. And then all of a sudden it's a new world, new identity. And it's hard for some people to adapt. It really and truly is. It's not an easy transition.
Exactly. And it's always, as a journalist, you were probably as close to being a public figure while remaining private in so many ways. But there are a lot of people, especially as a columnist, where your picture runs in the paper every day, and you'd be in the grocery store and people would come up and say, "Oh, I know who you are." And it was flattering in a very subtle way, but it was all of a sudden when you are separated from that, how do you go back to just being you again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I say, you almost need a coach. And I know a lot of people in the military, because of the aspect of that nature, really almost have to have somebody lead them by the hand for a short period of time, because that transition is a major obstacle, because it's not working the same way it used to.
Yes.
But we're getting toward the end of the show, and I want to make sure you have a chance to tell people how can they get your book, how can they get in touch with you. So it's yours. Take it away.
Well, I am available on all social platforms, most of them. Twitter, P Sangimino, Sangimino. Instagram at Patrick Sangimino. My website is www.patricksangimino.com. My book's available on every major platform, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the two big ones, of course. But yeah, I think it's a good read. I think it's something you would, most people will find something to pull out of, because there is if you're a sports fan, you're going to love some of the names in there. You're going to love some of the stories. Some of them make you laugh. Some of them make you cry. If you're somebody who's lost a father, I think you can relate to it. I think anybody who's gone through a divorce will find something that resonates with them. And in this economy, in the way we are today in the workplace, jobs are going away. We talked about AI, and the way things are going, the automation of the world is going to eventually eliminate jobs. So all of these things, there's something that most people will be able to relate with.
Okay, Patrick, I appreciate that. For our audio audience, this program will be aired out to you later on today. Patrick, Patrick, pretty standard there. Sangimino, SANGIMINO.com. PatrickSangimino.com. And Patrick, thank you so very much for your time today, and I look forward to following up with you on your next book, and it's going to happen soon. So take care.
Red, always a pleasure. I appreciate you.
Okay, take care. And we're wrapping up the Wise Ones today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And if you're not a subscriber to the show already, please go to YouTube and subscribe to the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I am concluding the show, and in about 20 minutes, my show called Talking Heads will be on. I'll be talking about, can your body still adapt as you age? And that's the topic today. Please join me in about 20 minutes if you can. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
How much of your value have you been giving away? Saying yes when the answer should have been no? Lowering your price to secure the opportunity? Giving more while receiving less? Over time, it adds up. Until one moment brings clarity, you've been giving away your value. This is not about working harder. This is not about doing more. It's about boundaries. It's about pricing. It's about respect. From Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck comes a direct and necessary message. Stop over-delivering. Stop underpricing your expertise. Stop negotiating against yourself. Because when you recognize your value, everything changes. Stop giving away your value. Boundaries, pricing, and the business of respect. Available now wherever fine books are sold and on Amazon. A film by USA Global TV and Radio. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Videographer and cinematic production Paul Garcia. Voiceover by Ed Vargas. Stop giving it away. Start owning it.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host, and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur, or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming, and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.